There's a silver lining that shines in the heavenly land. Look by faith and see it, my friend. Trust in His promises grand. Sing and be happy, press on to the goal. Trust Him who leads you. He will keep your soul. Let all be faithful. Look to Him and pray. Lift your voice and praise Him in song. Sing and be happy today. Okay, you want to sing another verse?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say we'll do the Church of Christ style. Now we're going to sing the last verse. When you see this eyeball, it looks like an eye. You're going to hold it out like that. That's called fermata. Can you say fermata? I don't know what's the matter with you. I'm sorry. A fermata on your hand, you're going to go, lift your voice and praise Him in song. Sing and be happy today. I'll do it again. Lift your voice and praise Him in song. Sing and be happy. Come right back to the swing again. Sing and be happy today. All right. And let's go with our verse, okay? Ah, he fell to see the rainbow up in the sky. When it seems the fortunes of earth frowning past us by, there are things we know that are worth more than silver and gold. If we will pay trust each day, we shall have pleasures untold. Sing and be happy, press on to the goal. Trust Him who leads you. He will keep your soul. Let all be faithful. Look to Him and pray. Lift your voice and praise Him in song. That's all right. You are really got that song. You're supposed to lift your voice and praise Him in song. Sing and be happy. Sing and be happy. Sing and be happy today. All right. Rhett. Got you a verse up here. This verse right here. Okay, hold on. Okay, go ahead. You'll be reading from, say I'll be reading from 1 John.
John
Chapter 5.
chapter 5,
Chapter 4,
chapter 4,
verse 7.
verse 7.
Okay. We're going to repeat all of that again, okay, because I messed it up a little bit. We're going to be reading
We're going to be reading
1 John
1 John
chapter 4,
chapter 4,
verse 7.
verse 7.
Okay, go ahead.
For love comes,
Start right there with that word there.
dear friends,
Louder.
dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God.
Very good. Awesome. Very good. Was there another song? Okay. We'll sing a VBS song together, and then we'll. All right, Eric. Since we prayed for rain, we're going to do the last one of the house. All right. Oh, I'll send it to you.
Oh.
Where's all of our kids?
And then Isaac.
Adrian and Red.
What? Red. Emerson?
Wise men built his house upon the rock. Wise men built his house upon the rock. Wise men built his house upon the rock, and the rains came tumbling down. Oh, the rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up, and the wise man's house stood firm. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand, and the rains came tumbling down. Oh, the rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up, and the foolish man's house went splash. So build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ. Build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ. Build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ, and the blessings will tumble on down. Oh, blessings come down as the prayers go up. Blessings come down as the prayers go up. Blessings come down as the prayers go up. So build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ. All right, good job, good class. Good evening. Open up to the book of Job. We are studying still Man Under Pressure, Job. And we're going to look at his response after his friend has spoken now some of his words of wisdom. And so we are looking at Job chapter 6. Job chapter 6 and 7. I'm calling this tonight Job's Reflection. Basically, Eliphaz the Temanite has been saying, we all know, it's well known, commonly accepted, we know it, I know it, you know it, you must have something you've done bad, because obviously something bad's happened to you. So we dealt with that last week, didn't we? And we noted that Jesus bust that myth, a common popular belief of ancient times, and it was all the way up through to the first century during the times of Jesus. I wonder today if it's still a common belief that bad things happen because you must be bad. Sometimes you hear it called karma, good karma, bad karma, or how many of you have been around long enough to know you've got a few things that you're familiar with called Murphy's Law. If anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. I think sometimes it permeates our attitudes when we operate from that way. In what we, in an extreme way, we can adopt what I call an Eeyore complex. You know what I'm talking about. Eeyore is always pessimistic. From Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore, oh, it can't be done. Nobody will talk to me. I can't do that. Or what? It's just like over and over and over again, like doomsday all over, for no matter what it is.
And then there are those that have people around them that are telling you, you can't do it, you're not good enough, you might as well give up. You know, it's not you're telling yourself. Now you got people telling you that. That's not very good pick-me-up stuff, is it? It's not very encouraging. I wrote a bulletin article that you'll see this week, and this is kind of, I'm going to use this same quote. You probably have heard me say it not too long ago, because when I get onto something that's new and it's really kind of sounds really good, I repeat it several times. Jim Rohn was known as a motivational speaker. He did some of the first TED Talks. I don't know if y'all know what a TED Talk is, but basically he went around to universities and corporations, and he gives, these speeches. Kind of like how many of you remember Zig Ziglar? Or maybe a John Maxwell, or Norman Vincent Peale. Those are some motivational speakers. He says that you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. So the bulletin article is, who's your 5? Who are you hanging around with the most? Do you think that's true? You're the average of the 5 people that you hang around the most? I know this. I'm not very good at golfing, and when I go golfing with some good golfers, their game goes down. But my game goes up because I'm golfing with better golfers. I think the moral of that story is try to surround yourself with champions, with positive motivational speakers. And one of my favorite preachers growing up, and was Mom's too, Marvin Phillips, many of you relate to him due to the Tulsa Soul Winning Workshops. He would have this saying, it's your attitude, not your aptitude, that determines your altitude. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And he would call that PMA. Remember that, Mom? PMA all the way. Your attitude makes all the difference in the world. And then, of course, what I would also point out is in 1 Corinthians 15:33, there's some credence given, some validation given through Scripture about this, you're being the average of the 5 people you hang around with, when we read, bad company corrupts good morals. Well, Job has 3 of these guys together with him. And I would suppose that they have some history together, wouldn't you? They have come to see their friend. We don't know if they served in the war together. We don't know if they were high school classmates. We don't know if they're, we don't know the history to the relationship. But they're coming out of, they are coming out of concern. I don't fault them for that. We shouldn't fault them for that. They're coming out of concern. I think they genuinely care about their friend. When they first arrive, they give him space for his grieving period. And really, I think they mean well. So a lot of times we're critical of these guys, but they do some things right. But what they say is based on wrong thinking. And so Job is going to reply here. So let's go ahead and dig into it. Let's go to chapter 6. Then Job replied. Now, only one of the guys, by the way, has spoken. We're going to have Bildad speak next, but only Eliphaz has spoken. But Job replies, if only my anguish could be weighed and all my misery be placed on the scales, it surely outweigh the sand of the seas. No wonder my words have been impetuous. The arrows of the Almighty are in me. My spirit drinks in their poison. God's terrors are marshaled against me. Let's just stop there for a moment. How would you describe Job's attitude? Woe is me? Reminds you of that hee-haw song? Or that song that a lot of us grew up, nobody knows the troubles I've seen, okay? man, he would just say, I mean, that's a big comparison. If all my anxieties, worries, and fears were on the scales, it outweigh all the sand on the seashore. Okay? And then what do you see in his perspective about what he's going through? What do you see in his perspective in relationship to God? This has come at the hands of God. As a matter of fact, his arrows are in me. It's like I've been shot with arrows. And you've seen those country western movies like I have. I remember, can't think the character's name, but Robert Duvall in Lonesome Dove, when he gets shot with that arrow and he's hung up under the little banks of the creek there, you know, hiding out. And it's a burning sensation, I'm sure. And he feels it, doesn't he? Job feeling this. I'm drinking in the poison, like a poison-tipped arrow. It's a constant flow of pain. So I want to ask you, and I know many of you, probably all of us, have experienced long-term pain in some degree. And when you do have long-term pain, does it only affect you physically? No. It is physiological. It will affect us emotionally. Our mental status will be affected by our body dealing with physical pain. And sometimes the pain is overshadowed by the anguish. I think anguish is a word that's attached to your emotions. And it's for that very reason that I be careful about how you judge a guy like Job, especially in this particular point of his life, about who is he to blame God for this. You have to remember, he doesn't know what you and I know. You know, he doesn't have the bird's eye view that you and I have of how this did go down. Now, obviously we could say, but why did God allow it? Maybe God didn't cause it, but why would he allow it? And then maybe we've got a valid conversation going on there. But he, from his perspective, can only see basically from the point of view his friends are giving and feeding him that, yeah, I am feeling this, guys. Any other thoughts on the first 4 verses before we move on? Okay, yes, Sam. Salt on the wound, right. Sometimes when you're dealing with something and you're, one of the coping mechanisms when you're dealing with pain is to try to distract yourself from the pain. So sometimes when you have to go through an excruciating, painful thing, like again in the Westerns, bite on this stick while I pull the arrow out or whatever, or I'm going to break the arrow, or put the gunpowder in and let it burn through, cauterize and pull, and, you know, yeah, bite on that stick. You got to do something to distract. But calling attention to it just makes it more radiating of that pain. So it doesn't help that they're there saying this. Yeah. I guess I have to use this because it's the most recent analogy, but obviously not everybody liked the news I brought Sunday. There's the salt in the wound. I understand that. Some of you need to be aware, though, that others have known this longer than you guys did. And like I said, I'd been asking Aubrey if she has forgiven me yet. And even today she says, no, not yet. And here I am in my office taping together some boxes and packing up some books, and she's hearing that, and it's like I'm not helping matters by her. I'm kind of, it's obvious, what I'm doing in there, and it's one of those things that I almost wish, well, okay, I need to not do that in front of her and try to, try to not bring that up. I think we have to be sensitive about each other's feelings is what we're trying to say. Let's move on. Verse 5. Does a wild donkey bray when it has grass? Or an ox bellow when it has fodder? Is tasteless food eaten without salt? Now, I know the answer to this question. No. I'm one of those that you give me the plate, I put salt on it, and somebody says, don't you want to taste it first? No, I know it's not got enough on it, okay? I'm putting more on it. Or is there flavor in the sap of the mallow? And this is, the footnote says the meaning of the Hebrew for this phrase is uncertain. So I have no idea. All I can think of is marshmallow. Okay, go ahead. In the what? White of an egg. Okay. All right. He says, verse 7, I refuse to touch it. Such food makes me ill. I just think that's kind of, I don't know, humorous in a way that food that's bland makes you ill. Food that has no flavor. It's like, how many of you have been to Hawaii? Have you tried poi? What do you think of poi? It has absolutely no flavor. It's made from the taro plant, the root. It's kind of look like a potato, a little purplish in color. There's nothing. You put it in, you can feel it, you know it's there. There's nothing. I don't like it. Verse 8, oh, that I might have my request, that God would grant what I hope for, that God would be willing to crush me, to let loose his hand and cut off my life. I have counseled people who have been so down and so defeated that they've asked me, would you please pray that God take me in the night? I mean, when somebody asks you to do that, it's like you really do have a sense of what they are emotionally going through. I mean, you don't know what they're going through, but you can certainly tell they believe they are at the end. And it's not that maybe they're suicidal themselves. They're just asking, I want this to end. All of us have probably have loved ones that, have not had quality of life toward the end of their life. And it is okay, I believe, to pray, God, please take them. You don't want to see a loved one suffer. You don't want to see somebody prolonged if there's not going to be any improvement or getting better. And I think that's okay to pray for. But for somebody to say who's perfectly healthy, but because of the troubles of life, please just take me out. I couldn't pray for that. I couldn't pray for that. And he is saying, Lord, if I could just have this one request. This is my hope. I want it to end. Verse 10. Then I would still have this consolation, my joy in unrelenting pain, that I had not denied the words of the Holy One. Now this adds an element to it. And what do you think the element is added by that? I mean, what are we hearing him say? Okay. But he's afraid of something here. He's concerned. What do you think his concern is? That he might go against and deny the Holy One. He knows that if this continues to persist, it could affect his thinking to the point that he will relinquish his faith, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to go out with a holding on to the faith. I get that. Does anybody else get that? I mean, I can understand that. Please get me out of this situation, or I'm going to go crazy, or get me out of this trouble, or maybe I need to move, because if I keep here with the influence or the reminders, I'm afraid of what it's going to do to me if I stay in it. You know what I'm saying? It's tough. It's a challenge. Anybody else have a thought there? I know I'm not doing a 100% effective job explaining everything completely. You've got to help me fill in some gaps here, okay? You don't have to agree with me either. Okay? That's a tough situation to be in. And I'm trying to think of maybe some of my own experiences where I knew that if I were to stay in this situation, and maybe it's let's go this route. I worked for a grocery store in my high school time where I worked late shifts, where we were stockers of the shelves. The trucks would be unloaded at night. We'd sort. We'd go to the aisles. We'd stock the shelves. We called it the truck crew. 2 or 3 of the guys on the truck crew would smoke pot up in the truck, and I would get high from just their secondhand smoke, and I never inhaled. But obviously I was being affected by that, and I was taken into some of the other influences that they were presenting me with, and that wasn't good. And I knew that if I were to continue working there, nothing uphill was going to go. It was going to keep going downhill. It was going to spiral. And it eventually got to where, I knew if I go to work, I'm just one step further away from God. And sometimes maybe you're at a situation and you're thinking, I can't deal with that condition anymore, that kind of influence. I certainly can't change them maybe, or you've tried but you failed. It might be noble to change jobs, to ask for a different shift, or maybe, quit that job, because it can be to your detriment, spiritually speaking. So you want to get away from the situation. All right, let's move on. Verse 11. What strength do I have that I should still hope? What prospects that I should be patient? Do I have the strength of a stone? Is my flesh bronze? Do I have any power to help myself now that success has been driven from me? Let's pause there. This is where I think Don, he is disagreeing with his friend. At least he's heard the friend. He hasn't heard all the friends yet. But he is kind of thinking, what's the point, Eliphaz, if you think I need to get this out and come clean or have full disclosure? What good is it? I've lost everything. And, it's not like that I wouldn't if I knew I could, but I don't even know what it is that I've got to disclose. But that's not really where he's hung up at. He's hung up on, what kind of guy do you think how much more of this do you think I can take if I were to try to improve? If you're saying improve my life by coming clean, I don't see any hope of any improvement at all there. There's nothing to be had. Do you think I've got a heart, or something of bronze? Like, you think I'm that resilient? You think things don't affect me? You think I can just bounce right back? Any thoughts? Mm-hmm. Do you believe that the very fact that he mentions, I'm afraid I might end up denying the Holy One, means he's already doubting the Holy One? Wouldn't that precede that? That he's in doubt now, and he knows what dangerous, trepid ground that is to stand on when you're in that doubt situation. I think there are times the faithful doubts, and we're told in Scripture to try to be watchful for that, to be careful for that. And I think that's one reason why we need to surround each other with the good friends that we have. Maybe the 5 that helps us stay with the strength. Go ahead, Sam. Yeah, but right now I think he's feeling, do what? Right. And I think he does that, but in this particular thing, it's a response to Eliphaz. He's not really talking to God, but he's saying, what do you think is going, what are you trying to achieve by talking to me like this? You really think there's hope? Are you giving me a false sense of restoration that I just don't see? And, I may be reading more into this than I should be, but this is the thought pattern that I think is very plausible for Job to be in. Don? Mm-hmm. He thinks he's lost everything. If you look at verse 13, all that success is driven from me now. I've got nothing left to hold on to here. Right. If anybody has, he has. If anybody has, he has. And remember, and he's probably smart enough to know, I know I'm probably not thinking straight. I know I'm being affected by the pain management stuff. And what do you do for pain management? Does he have antibiotics back then? Pharmacist, what kind of technology happened back then? Biting the stick, right? Biting the stick. I mean, if they knew about aloe vera or something like that, I'm sure they could have. But all we know is he's cutting himself with the potsherds when he has the boils on him, just to scrape them off of his skin, which is inflicting more and probably can cause infection. Yes. Mm-hmm. I think that, and that's Paul in 1 Corinthians, where he's saying that in chapter 12. I believe it's chapter 12, or it's chapter 10 maybe. But yeah, no temptation has overtaken you than that which is common to man. For God's not willing that anybody should be tempted beyond what they can bear, but he will provide a way out. And I think Job is like the illustration of that, but you go back in history and say, well, this could be an illustration of that. And I don't know how much more could have happened to Job without him denying his faith. When you say hit the wall, do y'all know of anybody that's been to that limit? I mean, Jesus. But Jesus had the knowledge of knowing what would come after this. Job does not. While we do know there's a great theological position Job has in his mind, and I'll remind you of this, what he tells his wife, do we not receive the bad from God from the same hand we also receive the good? And that's a great mentality to kind of remember, but sometimes we rejoice over things that happen right in our life. And we conclude that, okay, God was looking out for me. God cared. God's blessing me. It must have been God's will. But then the flip side is things aren't working out for me. That promotion I wanted, or that house I wanted financed, or that girl in high school that I wanted to say yes, and she didn't. And then mom says, well, it wasn't God's will. And you want to go slap somebody. Not your mom, but you want to go slap somebody, right? It wasn't meant to be. I'm thinking, I want to strangle you. I thought it was meant to be, But you don't like that, to hear it that way. We like it on the positive side. Oh, it's God's will. It's God's this. It's God. And I think a lot of times we play this game, and that sort of leads us to this belief system that, well, it must be something wrong with me because something bad's happening to me. It kind of leads to that thought. But I don't know if I can come up with anybody else besides Job that is as much against the wall as he was. But we also realize this. Although he doesn't deny God and he doesn't curse God, he does have questions. He has doubt. There is, the human weakness is very evident there. The human weakness side is very evident there. Verse 14, anyone who withholds kindness from a friend forsakes the fear of the Almighty. But my brothers are as undependable as intermittent streams, as the streams that overflow when darkened by the thawing ice and swollen with melting snow, but that stop flowing in the dry season and in the heat vanish from their channels. Caravans turn aside from their routes. They go off into the wasteland and perish. The caravans of Tema look for water. The traveling merchants of Sheba look in hope. They are distressed because he'd been confident. They arrive there only to be disappointed. Now you too have proved to be of no help. You see something dreadful and are afraid. What's he talking about there, Don? He's talking about, you guys are no help. Yeah. I mean, I can think of that where you see, you've probably been in places where sometimes places we've camped have had natural springs. And some years it flowed pretty good, and some years it trickled, out of that rock or whatever. It just depended on the rain season. Some streams dry up, and wells go dry, ponds go dry, and it's not like what you remember maybe. And he's comparing that to you as my friends. It's like you have some appearance, but I walk up to it and y'all have got nothing for me. And how he puts it is pretty blunt. You prove to be of no help. Verse 22, have I ever said, give something on my behalf? Pay a ransom for me from your wealth. Deliver me from the hand of the enemy. Rescue me from the clutches of the ruthless. Teach me and I will be quiet. Show me where I have been wrong. How painful are honest words. But what do your arguments prove? Do you mean to correct what I say and treat my desperate words as wind? You would even cast lots for the fatherless and barter away your friend. But now be so kind as to look at me. Would I lie to your face? Relent. Do not be unjust. Reconsider, for my integrity is at stake. Is there any wickedness on my lips? Can my mouth not discern malice? Okay. There are thoughts there I have that I'm going to say, take with a grain of salt, because, these are just kind of surface thoughts. I have a bachelor's in psychology, which my instructor said is just enough to be dangerous. So I can't diagnose what condition John has. Sorry, Judy. You asked about it the other day. I have no idea. So, but I really feel what's going on here is he thinks that you guys think you've got me figured out, and if I don't do what you're asking me to do, then you're just kind of walking off, dusting the dust off your shoulder, and you're going to go back and say, well, we tried, that guy wouldn't listen to us, and if he had only listened to us. And that's the treatment with malice. In other words, you think you have the answers, and because I don't produce what you think is the solution, then you're going to sit in judgment for me. That's what I'm getting from this. You're going to sit in judgment concerning me. And when did I ask for your opinion? When did I ask you to give me your thoughts on this? What's your philosophical answer to this? What theological stance? What do you think I should do? He didn't ask for any of that, did he? And it's almost like maybe what y'all should have done is said, Job, can we get you some water? Can we help bandage your wounds? Can we take care of your physical need? Can we help you lift something or move something or mow the yard, or what can I do to help you? And they just want to meddle out there, or not meddle, peddle out there their goods of wisdom. So here's our thinking. And I think sometimes there's a time for Christians to not give what we're thinking, but to give action of serving. And that's what real sympathy is. We can't just say to people, be warm and well fed, and then us walk away saying, I'm glad I'm not in their condition. No, I think we ought to be drawn into being more like the Good Samaritan, don't you? To give action to how we feel about our brother or sister, in the case if it's a sister. To have true concern. You think Eliphaz has shown true concern? I said he had concern. But it doesn't seem to be displayed correctly. The words have a way of keeping yourself clean. You'll give the words and, a little advice, follow my advice. And do you have some people around you in your life right now that like to give you advice? Anybody? I do. Coach, anybody in the stands ever give you advice about how to coach? Parents? Yeah. So, we don't need more armchair quarterbacks, do we? We need more people that are players on the field say, here, let me help you up, and let's get to the bench, and can I get you water? Can I cool you off? Can I get you a ice pack? That's what's not happening here, is it? It's not happening. Any other questions or comments that you have from chapter 6? Don? Mm-hmm. They do that right. As I was saying a while ago at the beginning, I do think that they start things off right. They're giving him space. Yeah. And it's almost like, okay, it's been 7 days. Let's get on with our life. You need to do this, this, and this, and then everything will get back to normal. And Job's saying, y'all are idiots. Chapter 7. I'm noticing I'm really losing time here. So I'm going to read without interruption here. Do not mortals have hard service on earth? Are not their days like those hired laborers? Like a slave longing for the evening shadows, or a hired laborer waiting to be paid, waiting for the clock to get to 5 o'clock, right? So I have been allotted months of futility, and nights of misery have been assigned to me. When I lie down, I think, how long before I get up? The night drags on, and I toss and turn until dawn. My body is clothed with worms and scabs. Ooh, we haven't had that detail, have we, that he has worms? My skin is broken and festering. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and they come to an end without hope. Remember, O God, that my life is but a breath. My eyes will never see happiness again. The eye that now sees me will see me no longer. You will look for me, but I will be no more. As a cloud vanishes and is gone, so one who goes down to the grave does not return. He will never come to his house again. His place will know him no more. Therefore I will not keep silent. I will speak out in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I the sea or the monster of the deep, that you put me under guard? When I think my bed will comfort me and my couch will ease my complaint, even then you frighten me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that I prefer strangling and death rather than this body of mine. I despise my life. I would not live forever. Let me alone. My days have no meaning. What is mankind that you make so much of them, that you give them so much attention, that you examine them every morning and test them every moment? You will never look away from me or let me alone even for an instant. If I have sinned, what have I done to you? You who see everything we do. Why have you made me your target? Have I become a burden to you? Why do you not pardon my offenses and forgive my sins? For I will soon lie down in the dust. You will search for me, but I will be no more. Let me ask you this question. What's happened in Job's monologue here in terms of whom he's directing his words? Somewhere in here, and it's hard to find where the clear distinction is. He has gone from speaking to his friends and it turning into God. Yeah. And I don't know, we're not told that the chapter break is where it happens. It may be that that's where the best guess of anybody is. That's the chapter break. But you have to remember, the Bible's not written in chapter breaks. And I just find sometimes there are a few times where, just for example, and in coach or anybody at school, and maybe you've had workplace where you're dealing with a lot of people, you've experienced this. But on a school bus, I might have one kid that keeps standing up. Sit down. 3 minutes later, sit down. Sit down, Johnny. And then I stop the bus, put my hazards on. I pulled off safely from the road. Then I've got like 10 parents parking in beside me wondering what's going on. That happens. But I'm on the bus and I stand up and I say something to Johnny. Johnny, how many times do I have to tell you to sit down? You guys don't listen, do you? What have I done? I've gone from Johnny to the whole bus. And I think in this instance, it looks like Eliphaz. God, why did you send this idiot to me? What are you trying to do to me? It's almost like redirecting it. The frustration is there, and he is he's really wanting some answers here. So I think that's a dynamic you need to see, that it's refocused here. It's almost like now he's in prayer mode, kind of, or it may not be technically a prayer, but he's talking to God, and I guess that is prayer. But it's with a lot of questions, isn't it? What about the content of chapter 7? What did you see that kind of piqued your interest? What about verse 3? That there seems to be in mind a number of days that I have to meet, a number of nights of misery that are assigned to me that I can't get out of. I'm destined to have these many days or these many nights of sleeplessness. Any of you experienced sleeplessness over emotional distress type sleeplessness? And you just expect it. You start expecting it. Anybody else see something in here? Mm-hmm. Verse 17. What is mankind that you make so much of them, that you give them so much attention? And something that's in Hebrews too. What is man that you're mindful of him? Yeah. I think verse 11 is a pivotal verse. First of all, you're clued into that by the word conjunction. Therefore is a conjunction. He arrives to a conclusion, doesn't he? You know, he could sit and take this and just deal with it, but he says, but I'm not going to do that. God, I'm going to say something about this. I'm not going to keep silent. It's like he's prompted to say something. Can God take it? Yeah. I mean, God can hear you. And I know I used to, or I had a sermon, maybe it was a bulletin article too, let God have it. And I'm not talking about let God have it, put your dukes up. I'm just saying let God have it. What was it David said? A broken, contrite heart God will not despise, right? Sometimes we need to say, God, break my heart. And that's another song that we sing about breaking my heart. And sometimes that's what has to happen for us to even accept anything healing in nature at the hands of God. We have to be broken open first. Yeah. That's right. Anybody else see anything in here that you want to bring up? Yeah. All right, well, next week we're going to see another friend, Bildad. That's chapter 8. And Job's going to respond to him. That's chapters 9 and 10. So let's do 8 through 10. Because we're just one short chapter of what Bildad's going to say. He's the Shuhite, and not Boothite, but Shuhite. And we'll see what Job is going to respond to him. And then we got another friend that will speak later. All right, thank you guys for joining us for our study. We'll go ahead and sign off from our YouTube, Facebook groups.